So in the case of a fever, your body is giving you a fever for a specific reason. The virus is a bug, and our body launches a fever to try to burn and kill the bug. Without that fever, the body can't overcome this bug. It needs the fever. Yet, what does Western medicine do? It gives medicine to take away our fevers. This is so dangerous, and it leads to many complications, sometimes even death in those people that are not that strong.
The Vidal Speaks podcast.
Episode 49, meSPEAKS, Flu and Cold Season, What to Do to Prevent It and to Treat It Naturally. Welcome to Vidal Speaks. My name is Deborah Vidal, former 11-year LPGA golf pro turned classical homeopath, certified plant-based nutritionist, and wellness coach. Each week here on Vidal Speaks, we bring you knowledge, inspiration, or natural remedies to help you take charge of your health and feel your best. I believe health is freedom and knowledge is power, so tuning in each week will give you the power to take steps towards freeing yourself from the chains that hold you back from having the energy to do all you want in life. No matter where you are in your journey of wellness, Vidal Speaks can help. I promise. Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're enjoying the holiday season and not getting too overwhelmed, because this is a time of year that should be enjoyed. It's easy to get caught up in the commercial aspect of Christmas, so you really have to think about how you want to spend your holiday season and then stick to that, because there are plenty of distractions out there, right? With all the shopping and parties, it's easy to overeat and to overwhelm our wallets and our bodies. Lloyd and I like the holidays so much. It seems that people are nicer during the holiday season. Many say happy holidays or they give you a smile when maybe they wouldn't do that at other times. We also love to have a few friends over for a nice little party. We call it our vegan mingle jingle. Sharing delicious organic plant-based food around a table of good friends. Now that's how I love to spend my holidays. And that's a nice gift to each other, because these days, many don't really need more stuff. And giving a gift of friendship and food made with love is a lovely thing that often means much more than a material gift. And if you do have people you have to buy gifts for, I like to give the gift of an experience or something useful, because giving stuff just doesn't feel right most times. Most of us have enough, don't we? And we'd rather buy what we like anyway. So a gift card to a market for organic food, that's nice. Or how about a gift card to a nice restaurant or a juice bar, because then you're supporting good health in your gift. Another great idea I had this year was giving a 23andMe gene test gift card. Learning how to eat and live according to our genes, well, that's the medicine of the future, so what a great gift that is. Another good idea for the person who has everything is to make a donation to your favorite charity, and then you put all the names of the people you want to send it to, and it will say that a donation has been made in their name. My mom and dad used to do that in their later years because it was so much for my mom to buy all the other doctor friends gifts. And let's face it, they sure didn't need any more stuff. So this was something my mom and dad could feel good about giving, and the other doctors seemed to like it too. Anyway, try not to go overboard this year. Christmas and the holidays should be enjoyed. It's my favorite time of year. I'm sitting here right now with my mom's favorite ornaments hanging from my living room beams. She left me her ornaments after she died, and I treasure them. I hang them every year up on my beams, and then I have her energy all around me for the Christmas season. I love that. For me, Christmas goes by way too fast. Soon it's going to be 2017. And speaking of this time of year, it's also the time of year where people get sick. In LA, that wave of sickness has already started, whether it's a cold, sinus infection, bronchitis, a flu, or a pneumonia. They all go together because it may start out as a simple cold and end up as pneumonia. So today, I'm doing a meSPEAKS, meaning it's just me and you actually, talking about the flu and cold season and what to do about it if you get it, but also how can you prevent it when you're around so many others that are sick? So if you're ready, let's get started. First, let's make a little differentiation between a cold and a flu. Both are viruses, which means, you guys, that antibiotics won't help that because antibiotics are for bacterial infections, right? Not for viral infections. Complications from colds and flus can lead to bacterial infections in the lungs and sinuses, but that's a different story then. Generally, when we first get a cold or a flu, it's usually a virus. Okay, so what are the symptoms of a cold? Usually a cold starts with a sore throat for many people. It can be sneezing, that chilly feeling, and after a few days it goes into a congestion. It's kind of what we know as a head cold. That congestion can feel like a headache as the sinuses can hurt when they're full, but it's different than a flu. Then a cough can sometimes develop, but not always. And when the cold starts moving down into the chest and lungs, it's time to worry a little because that means bronchitis may be developing, and from there, it can easily go to pneumonia. And what are the symptoms of a flu now? Well, a flu comes on rather fast, unlike a cold where we usually know for a few days that we might be getting sick. And I would say people usually say they feel achy first. Actually, I would say that achy is one of the symptoms that really can help you differentiate between a flu and a cold the most. Although it's not impossible to ache during a cold, it's not so common. Also, fever. Fever almost always goes with the flu, and it's not that common in adults with a cold. If you were to get a fever with a cold, it would be a low fever. And if you get a high fever, then it's likely that you have the flu. So achy and fever is often the flu. You can get a sore throat and congestion with a flu, but that's not as common. The most common picture of a flu is this sore, achy bones, achy joints, body aches, headache, and high fever, and lots of fatigue, or what is known as malaise, which means a lot of discomfort and just feeling bad. A flu can easily turn into a pneumonia if not careful. Many older people, once they get a pneumonia, they don't recover. So you want to treat the flu preventatively for those at risk. And I don't mean with the vaccination. You'll learn how to do that in a minute. So do you get the idea of how they are different? Although they can share some of the same characteristics, you have to look at what is different to really diagnose what you have. If you only learn one thing today, this is the one that may save your life. Do not ever treat your fever with aspirin, or for that matter, with any other fever-lowering drugs like ibuprofen, which is Advil. In the 1918 flu epidemic, 500 million people died from the flu. That was a third of the world's population. Can you imagine that? And the homeopathic doctors only lost a few patients because it takes a few days to figure out what remedies are called the genus epidemicus. That means that they take all the common symptoms of the epidemic, which takes a few days before they see enough cases that they can actually find the common symptoms. And then they find the 2 or 3 remedies that are covering that symptom picture of all the people. And that means those 2 or 3 remedies will become the ones that cure everyone. That's what a genus epidemicus is. Well, in 1918, when the flu epidemic hit, it was some years after the discovery of aspirin, so all the allopathic or regular doctors, they gave advice for their patients to take aspirin to treat those high fevers and their body aches, and people would then get pneumonia and die. So the allopathic doctors lost millions because they didn't figure out that the aspirin was suppressing the fever and the fever was going deeper and causing them a pneumonia. But the homeopaths, they just treated with the homeopathic remedies and they lost almost no patients. Now, aren't you glad you guys are listening to the Vidal Speaks podcast? Just knowing this fact is really important. Actually, my dad told me once when he was training in Minnesota as a doctor that he had an older doctor that was his mentor, and he told him, if you remember one thing, just remember this: never take a patient's fever away with aspirin. When my dad told me that, I was shocked because you never, ever hear a doctor say that this day and age. Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about this aspirin and suppression of a fever issue. In order to understand what happens, you have to understand first the law of nature and how the body heals and gets sick. You guys know I speak about this a lot, and if you haven't heard all of the shows yet, be sure to go back to episode number 5 called Homeopathy Basics, and then you'll understand this very important aspect of how our body works. Basically, the body's just trying to keep what is known as homeostasis, which just means a balance, and when it gets slightly out of the homeostasis, it throws out a symptom to us. It may be on the skin, a cough. It could even be as serious as a seizure, but whatever it throws out, it's because it's needing to do this to keep the inner balance of the system. And so when we take away that symptom, we're just suppressing it, and that means we're pushing it back in. So think of our system like a pressure cooker, because that helps it make a lot more sense. When you push the symptom back in that our system threw out for a reason, then the inner pressure goes up, which is not good. This means soon the disease is going to go deeper. For example, if we had an eczema on our skin and we suppressed it with cortisone cream, it means we pushed it back in. The cortisone cream may look like it takes away the symptom of the eczema, but really it just pushed it back in. And if the body's strong, meaning if the person's vital force is strong, well, it'll push it right back out on the skin. And if you push it back in with the cortisone cream, it'll push it back out if the vital force is strong. But if the vital force is not strong, or if the vital force finally gives up after so many times of being suppressed, then the disease state drives deeper to the lungs and asthma will develop. Doctors will tell you they are not related, meaning the asthma has nothing to do with the eczema. But homeopaths know that they are, because when we treat people with asthma that have had skin eruptions suppressed with cortisone, as soon as their asthma gets better, guess what we see? The eruptions return, and then you treat the eruptions and they're cured naturally, not just by suppression of symptoms. That's not a cure ever. Okay, so now let's relate this idea of suppression and fever to a flu or a cold. So in the case of a fever, your body is giving you a fever for a specific reason. The virus is a bug, and our body launches a fever to try to burn and kill the bug. Without that fever, the body can't overcome this bug. It needs the fever. Yet, what does Western medicine do? It gives medicine to take away our fevers. This is so dangerous, and it leads to many complications, sometimes even death in those people that are not that strong. A fever is a really strong and violent reaction by our body, because any acute illness means that we are either going to live or die from it. Acutes are something that are fast and violent. We either overcome it or we die, so our body acts in very strong ways. So a big fever actually means our system is working quite well in helping us heal. However, sometimes in this great reaction of the body, it needs more than the fever, so it starts producing mucus so it can suffocate the bacteria. But it can produce so much mucus, it can fill the lungs, and soon we're in serious trouble. But still, it was the natural reaction of the body to try and fight that infection, yet the reaction can sometimes still kill us because the virus is so much that the reactions of the body can actually suffocate us in the process. So treatment is a must. I am never saying don't do anything. I am only saying don't suppress a fever, especially as your first measure in sickness. Sometimes we have no choice, but let's make it our last choice, okay? Okay, so I'm sure you guys are thinking right now, so what should I do? Yes, good question. Well, because I'm a homeopath, guess what my first move always is? Homeopathy and finding a remedy. But even though you're not a homeopath, you too can use homeopathy first. There's a homeopathic remedy called oscillococcinum, and often it's even found in drugstores, not always just a health food store. Or you can order it from my products page and be ready in case you need it. It's famous for its funny and hard name, but it's known as a general flu remedy. You buy a box of it. It comes in a white box. I think it has like a yellow and orange stripe on it, and it'll have 5 vials in the box of these tiny pellets. And the directions will say, take 1 vial of pellets on your tongue each day or something like that. But I just used 3 of the pellets from one of the vials, and they're tiny little pellets, and I put them in 4 ounces of water, and I stir it 10 times, and then I take a spoon every hour. I stir 10 times, take a spoon, another hour, stir 10 times, and take a spoon like that. But I've only used 3 pellets out of all those thousands of pellets. So guess what? That box I bought for $10, that's going to last me my lifetime with all the pellets in there. So get one of those boxes in your wellness toolbox right now. And in case oscillococcinum doesn't work, then get yourself a kit and a book and have it at home for when you need it. You know I like that book called Homeopathic Self-Care, which is on the products page of my website. Go to the flu or cold section and answer the questions to determine which remedy covers your symptom picture the best. If it doesn't work or it doesn't help you, then you need to find a homeopath fast. And you need to make sure that you have a homeopath as your family practitioner so you can just pay them when you're in acute and do a phone consult, because in times like this, you don't feel like going out in your car and having to meet somebody new and do an appointment. So now I want to tell you a few of the famous or well-known flu remedies. The first one is arnica. Yes, you guys know arnica. It was the episode I did on trauma and injuries, remember? And then there's bryonia. Another one's gelsemium. And another one's eupatorium. So I'm going to tell you just a sentence or two about each one. Arnica's symptoms is that they feel like the bed is really hard. So they have a lot of achiness. And they just feel sore all over. Bryonia's biggest symptom picture is that they are very kind of like the grumpy bear remedy. They want to be left alone. They tell their family members, just shut the door and leave me alone. They have a fever, usually a cough, but if it's not a cough, they'll feel very dry, like a fever without much thirst. And gelsemium's symptom picture is very heavy. They have like heavy eyes. Their eyes ache a lot. Their legs feel really heavy. They'll talk about how it feels like so hard to even pick up their legs, or their head feels heavy. So just this overall sensation of being heavy. And eupatorium, wow, that was a miracle in one of my flus. The symptom picture of eupatorium is they have the bones aching, especially the long bone of the legs, but it could be the long bone of the arm, but it'll feel like very specific ache in the bones. So if you can just remember like those 1 or 2 little things about each of those remedies, there's lots of other remedies that can work in a flu. These are just a few so I can give you guys a little bit of an idea, okay? So the next important step when we have a flu or a cold or a sickness is rest. Go to bed early, sleep a lot, and give your body a chance to heal itself. Sometimes just a remedy and rest, and I feel better, and you can be too. One thing that amazes me is how people will never rest when they're sick. Most are sick and have a fever and a hacking cough, and they're still working the same amount as they were before they were sick. This is crazy, you guys. You need to go to bed, take a few days off from work, and you have to try to heal. It's really important to rest because this is when your body heals. And honestly, if you don't do it, it's going to end up much deeper and you'll be in a more critical state anyway. So please remember, rest is a must. My next step is I take olive leaf. I like the one on my products page by Gaia. It's my most favorite, and it works better than any other one I've tried. I take 3 at a time, and I may take that like 4 or 5 times a day, whether I just feel like I'm getting sick or I'm in a big crisis. Usually if I feel like I'm coming down with something, I want to nip it in the bud, so I take 3 olive leaf, I go to bed early, take a hot bath, maybe take a remedy, maybe not. Usually by the morning, I don't have anything. I love olive leaf, and it's often the very first thing I do, along with a good night's sleep. Usually, always, it's gone the next day if I do those 2 things. So what's the next step in my protocol of healing the flu or a cold? For me, it's sweating. I happen to own an infrared sauna, so if you have one too, then get in it, because sweating is really miraculous when you're under the weather. If you don't have one, you just need to wrap up. Use a hot water bottle in your bed. But let me tell you a little trick. Buy an infrared heating pad. If you don't have one, you guys should get one. They're amazing. There are these pads that have little infrared lights, or they're usually like stones, and they work fantastic in the winter. When you're cold, they feel so nice. But when you're sick, they actually make you sweat. So that's a great alternative. And yeah, they're a little bit expensive. Usually they're $100 or $200 for one that's decent size, but you'll have it for a long time, and it's something you will not regret. Another way to sweat is take a bath. Sweating's really important, but the one thing I don't want you to do is exercise to sweat. So many people decide they're going to go for a run or do something like that. Your body doesn't need to be spending all that energy exercising. It needs to rest and sweat while it's resting. So remember that. So now the obvious next thing is baths. Either a foot bath or a bath with Epsom salt and essential oils. Both are fantastic. Buy yourself a foot bucket and have easy access to it, because once you start doing foot baths, you'll want to do them more often, not just when you're sick. I love foot baths. There was this famous French herbalist, I can't remember the name of his book, but he cured all his patients with his herbs in foot baths. I love baths of any kind, and sitting in the winter with your feet in a hot bucket of water with the aroma wafting out of lavender and frankincense or whatever essential oil you want to put in. Oh, that's so nice. Always add Epsom salt in there too, because it's a great way to get the much needed magnesium that our body needs, and it helps us feel better in so many ways, including those achy joints during the flu. It helps the chills too. So foot baths are fantastic, and regular baths are fantastic. Fill your bath up, put a big cup or 2 of Epsom salt in there. Take your favorite essential oil, or if you know or have a book of essential oils, look up ones that are good for colds, flus, viruses, bacterias, and throw a few drops of 2 or 3 different oils in your bath and just sit back and relax. Man, I love my baths. They're just the best. I'm just not a shower person. I'm a bath person. And Epsom salt and essential oils, there's a lot of other things I can put in there too on other days, like calcium bentonite clay and some fulvic acid. I mean, there's so many things. Hydrogen peroxide, food grade, to add oxygen to the body. I love using baths as a healing mechanism, so try it when you're sick, because all these things we add to the bath, they're healing the body. It's not just to relax you and sweat you. These oils and Epsom salt and magnesium, they're all doing things to get you better. So it's a really important part of getting well. Okay, the next step in healing my flu or my cold is essential oils. I use them on the bottom of my feet, and I diffuse them into the air. Essential oils are so fun and so great. I hope you guys give it a try. I promise I'll have someone on the show, though, that'll talk to us about using them in much deeper way. But for right now, we're going to talk about using them for a flu or a cold. I use them in a few ways when I'm sick. I put them in my bath, like I told you, and in my foot baths, but then I use them in my diffuser, and that diffuses it into the air all day. And sometimes at night, I'll diffuse one, like if I'm congested, to help open up my sinuses, or if I can't sleep, then I might put lavender into my diffuser so it relaxes me. I love the diffuser. I use it every single day. So just go to Amazon via my website banner, of course, and just search for your diffuser there. They're not expensive. Some of them are really cheap, like $30, but it's something you'll love. I like one that won't run out too fast because I like to use it all night. And some of them have different kind of program cycles. Like mine can go on for 3 seconds, then off for 10 seconds, then on. So it kind of puts a little poof in the air every 5 seconds or something like that. But just check them out and see which one you like and buy one and try it. Okay, now a little bit about what oils to buy. One very well-known combo oil is called Thieves. It's a blend of clove, lemon, cinnamon bark, eucalyptus, and rosemary, I think. It's made by this company called Young Living, and that company makes extremely pure oils, but they're not cheap. However, quality is very important in essential oils because many come from China and they're full of heavy metals. Many don't distill them properly, so you're better off to pay for the good ones. I have a mixture of brands from Young Living to another one called doTERRA to another brand called Floridana, which I get from tropicaltraditions.com, and I'll put the link to that one in the show notes because it's a very quality oil for much less money. The other oil I love is one called Dr. Schultz Deep Tissue Oil. It's a mixture, but mostly it smells like wintergreen. I use this one in so many ways. I go through bottles of this every year because I put it on my knees, I put it on my back. In a flu or a cold, I'll put a few drops in a pot of boiling water. Then I put a cover over my head like a towel, and I just lean over the pot and I breathe in, and it opens up my sinuses and lungs. This one's the best. And if you have an injury, like if my back's sore, I put it on my back, and then I put my infrared heating pad that I was telling you about, and the heat pushes that oil in. You can do this with any essential oil, but this one is just fantastic. I don't know, there's something about this mixture that I really love. It's good too to get a book on the basics of oils for certain health situations, but we'll get into that when I do an episode or a show just on essential oils. Other oils that I use a lot: lavender for sleep and inflammation and relaxing and in my bath. Another great oil, especially when you have a flu or a cold, is oregano oil. Oregano oil kills infections. It's great to diffuse. It's great to put in your bath. But with oregano oil, you can put 2 or 3 drops in water and drink it. It's so strong. You have to be careful. It's really strong, but this stuff really works. And another common oil is eucalyptus. As you know, they put it in saunas and it helps open people's sinuses and lungs. Peppermint oil is a great one. Lemon oil is a great one. And all of these oils have their own healing picture, but you can't go wrong just using them in your bath and diffusing them. They're one of my absolute favorite healing things that I use. So the next important step is to drink water. One thing you may know already, but it's important to know, is that fevers tend to dehydrate the body a lot. So you may not feel like drinking, but it's a must, because if you have a fever, then for sure you'll be dehydrated. And if you do get dehydrated, you need to take the homeopathic remedy called China officinalis. Sometimes it's also known as cinchona. You can buy it online or at a health food store very easily, and you just take a few doses of that and you'll come out of your dehydration. But really, it's best not to get there because dehydration is dangerous. So drink, drink, drink. Water's the best, but you can drink coconut water for extra potassium and electrolytes, or you can put some plant minerals in your water, but just be sure you drink. Okay, so the next thing is food. I like to think of it as soup, juice, teas, smoothies, or liquid nutrition. I think the best thing to eat is a liquid diet, mostly because when you take the burden of digestion out of the picture, it then gives the body more energy to heal. Also, things like smoothies and juice, they pack the punch with nutrition, meaning you get so much more nutrition in a small amount. And often we're not hungry when we're sick, so it's important to get the nutrition. Lastly, smoothies often feel good on our sore throat, and I can hide many of my supplements in them. I put in my acerola cherry powder, my amber toast, my acai berry powder, spirulina, whatever I want in there. It just makes it a lot easier to take things. And then there's soup. It's so warming for the soul, isn't it? It can help us sweat. It makes us feel loved, and with such great nutrition from that bowl full of veggies. I love the lentil and quinoa soup I make, but any soup is good soup to me. As long as it's organic and vegan, how can you go wrong? And if you live alone, please reach out to a friend and ask them to pick you up a bowl from your local health food store, because it's not good to get up and start cooking if you feel like just staying in bed. We all need to reach out and ask people to help us when we're sick. And even sipping on an organic veggie broth is better than nothing, but there's nothing like a big bowl of vegan soup when we're sick, that's for sure. Time to take a little break. And I want to take a moment during this break to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas or a happy holiday season if you're one that doesn't celebrate Christmas. If you want to do a nice thing for the Vidal Speaks podcast to say you're enjoying the show, the best thing you can do is leave a review, spread the word, and use that Amazon banner when you shop from Amazon. So enjoy this week, and may it be special in every way possible. Healthy, happy, and filled with fun times with your family and friends. And my tip this week is to watch the movie It's a Wonderful Life. I just love this one. So if you haven't seen it, it's a must. And you have, it's time to watch it again because it's Christmas. Okay, peace to all of you. Now let's get back to the show. Okay, so now we're going to talk about supplements because I'm sure you want to know what supplements I take or recommend when patients get sick. So let me just list them for you. I'll go slowly. Olive leaf, we've talked about that one, but that's really one of my first ones. Colloidal silver, I use it in two ways. I take it internally by my mouth, putting a few drops in water, drinking it down, but I also put 2 drops in a little nose bottle spray and I spray it up my nose because a lot of bacteria and infections come through the nose and it just seems to help. Plus, if you tend to have sinus stuff, that works. Then I take a product called Ambertose. It's something that you can't buy at the stores. It's like a multi-level marketing company that sells this product called Ambertose. My sister Becky used to sell it, but it's an aloe vera powder and it's really, really healing. It's helped me in a lot of illnesses. So I always keep a tub of it in my cupboard for when I need it. And then I take vitamin C, high doses. Usually mine is acerola cherry powder, but if I were really sick, like with a pneumonia and I had a chance, I would do an IV of vitamin C. And then I take high dose vitamin D. Sometimes I take 30,000, believe it or not, but I always take at least 20,000 until I'm over the hump. So that's 20,000 a day. My normal amount is 5, so I'm kind of doing 4 times my dose. Okay, and then I like to take some superfoods like spirulina, acai berry powder in my smoothies. There's lots of different superfoods, but they're all really super healing foods. So I put those in my smoothie. And then there's a product called beta-glucan. I don't always have this, and I used to take it all the time, but I try to keep a bottle of it because it does help the immune system. Oh, and another great thing to do is take a really high dose of probiotics. I take my 150 billion capsule, 2 of them, and I may do that twice a day. That is really a help. And please don't forget that tip because it really does work. And then sometimes for the body aches and joint pains, I take proteolytic enzymes and a product called Zyflamend, which is really good for inflammation. So those are my basic supplements, and maybe I've forgotten a few, but those are really at least my core supplements that I go to. And the next step, when I'm feeling out of that contagious stage, then I would do acupuncture. We're usually contagious for about 3 days. I think it depends on what you have. But if you're not healing, it could be longer. But acupuncture is really a great thing for me. I never used to be that fond of acupuncture because it never really worked that well for me. But then I found Dr. Lee, my lovely Dr. Lee. He's such an amazing acupuncturist, and he's a Korean acupuncturist. And honestly, if any of you have had not such good success with acupuncture like I had experience, try Korean acupuncture. For me, it's way better than Japanese and way better than Chinese. It's very different. They use the fingers and toes a lot for a very deep healing treatment, and it really helps. So I would say Korean acupuncture, that's really one of my go-to things no matter what happens to me, whether it's an injury, a cold, a flu, or I go see Dr. Lee with anything I have. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is when we should worry in our cold and flu. Ah, yes, this is a very important question. It's important because we need to be smart, because acute illnesses can go bad fast. So you need to learn when it's okay to avoid medications like antibiotics and when it's not. Sometimes it could mean life or death. The main thing to know is always to take the right first steps. And then if nothing works and you feel you did everything, then you have to go to the doctor and take that drug. But 99% of the time, natural treatments will get you out of it. But you always need to be smart because acutes can become disasters very quickly. So if your fever is really high, try homeopathic remedies to treat it instead of a drug. Take a cool cloth, a cool bath, and see if you can avoid the fever medications if possible. However, a fever too high can cause seizures, and most people, especially children, can tolerate fevers higher than most think. 104 is not considered dangerous in my opinion, but if you're scared and you're worried, then I'm not going to tell you to do nothing. But in my case, 104, I let it go. I might put a cool cloth. I always take a homeopathic remedy anyway. So do a homeopathic remedy because they can work really fast in fevers. It is dangerous to suppress a fever, so you want to do everything you can naturally and only resort to the suppression when there's no other choice. So really give homeopathy a go in those fevers. It can work and fast. I want to tell you guys a story about when I got my pneumonia because I think it's going to show you how fast things can go wrong. It's a good story to show you about suppression. Well, when I left the tour, I was sick all the time with sinus infections and bronchitises, and they started going into my lungs, so I got many repeated lung infections. And I had this one day gotten a very bad bronchitis, which turned into kind of a lung infection. And I was doing all my stuff and trying to treat it. And it went on for 2-3 weeks. And I was finally overcoming it. And I actually thought I was over it. I didn't have a fever anymore. I was having my energy back. And I felt, I would say, 98% normal. But that morning when I got up, I had a horrible migraine, which was one of my other chronic symptoms at the time. And my drug of choice for my migraines was to take an aspirin. So I took my 3 aspirin, which is what I usually did when I got a migraine. And guess what? Man, in 5 minutes, I started breathing like I was in labor. I'm not kidding you. I was panting and breathing. My lungs started shutting down literally in 5 minutes. So obviously what happened was my body still had that bug inside of them, and it must have still had a fever, only I didn't take my temperature and I didn't think I had a fever. And when I took those 3 aspirin, I suppressed that fever that was trying to kill that bug. And suddenly, boom, my infection went right into my lungs. My fever went to 105 very shortly, but I didn't know that. I had just called a friend and I said, I'm really sick. Can you come over? And they came over and they took my temperature and they said, oh my God, Deb, your fever's 105.7. You need to go to the hospital. And I said, okay, look, I promise I'll go to the hospital, but just give me 15 minutes and give me that remedy. And I had my remedy kit above my bed, and she looked at me like I was crazy, but I just wanted to give it a try. So I took a dose of that remedy, and 5 minutes later, I took a dose. 5 minutes later, I took a dose, and then she took my fever, and it was down a little. And I just kept doing this, and in literally 20 or 30 minutes, my fever was down to 98.5. She was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I felt almost normal at that point. I just told her, I'm so thirsty. I want to get something like a milkshake or an orange freeze or something like this. So we went down to the local market and I got this frozen orange juice drink because I was so thirsty from having that high fever. Anyway, here's what happened. I was home alone and I went to bed that night, which was not a good idea to be home alone because I slept and I didn't wake up. And had I had someone with me, I would have made sure that they would give me doses of that remedy throughout the night. But instead, I slept the whole night. And when I woke up in the morning, I walked to the bathroom and I collapsed because in the night, the infection started coming back because I didn't continue with the remedy. So then I collapsed on the floor and it was a disaster. I could barely make it to the phone. I could tell that both of my lungs had almost no ability to breathe. It was now an emergency. My friend came back to get me. She took me to the ER, and needless to say, I had to do the traditional treatment with antibiotics, IV, antibiotics by mouth. However, they couldn't culture my bacteria and it wasn't working. They really didn't think I was going to make it through the night because both of my lungs were completely filled up. I was breathing on oxygen and the antibiotics weren't working. So my cousin brought my kit to me in the hospital when I started doing my remedies, and that's when I turned the corner. So the moral of the story is no aspirin and no suppression of fever if you can avoid it. And the other moral of the story is learn when it is the right time to go to the ER or to a doctor. So what else should we worry about when treating a flu or a cold? Okay, here's a few things. If you have painful swallowing that's so painful, then maybe you have strep. It might be time to go to the doctor. If you have pain in the chest or difficulty breathing, you could have a simple walking pneumonia or a full-on pneumonia. Time to get it checked. If you have fatigue that never goes away, or a deep cough that's like a barking cough that you've had for a while, my first thing to recommend is if you don't feel you have a handle on your progress, then pay a homeopathic practitioner for an acute appointment. And if that doesn't work, then you just need to go to a doctor and get something to take care of it because waiting can be deadly. And I want you to know that when you do get sick, it's likely because you were too stressed. You were overdoing it, eating poorly, not sleeping, and not being true to yourself and living life in the way that makes you happy. Also, so many of us don't take time off when we get sick, and germs are everywhere. And with our society being so sleep deprived and full of toxins, many can't fight off infections when we're exposed to them. So we need to always be working on building up our immune system. But that happens when we're not in an acute infection. That's just our everyday work. Okay, so now you're probably wondering how you can avoid getting sick if your partner is sick or your kids are sick or if you're around a bunch of sick people at work. And this is very important to know what to do. First of all, I want to tell you that if you work on all the things that the Vidal Speaks podcast is giving you to become healthy, you'll build your immune system and you won't get sick even when you're exposed. I was a person after my pneumonia that was told because of the severity of my double pneumonia that I would be so, vulnerable, I guess they said, and I would get many more pneumonias and I would have to be very careful. And it was true. I had 3 more pneumonias over the next few years. I got sick anytime I was exposed to anybody coughing. But finally, after being treated by Dr. Master, I took my constitutional remedy for a few years, and now I can be around sick people, and I am all the time, and I never get sick. So detoxing and building your immune system is the right answer, but that's a long-term project, not something that will help you today. Today, we're talking about acute treatment. So here are some measures you can take to avoid being sick when you're around a bunch of sick people. First of all, if you're an elderly person or a person with a weakened immune system, I would recommend that you take a homeopathic remedy preventatively, which will work kind of like a flu vaccine. You can buy this remedy on my products page. It's called Influenzinum 9C. You'll see the link in the show notes. But you take 1 pellet of that homeopathic remedy and you put it in a bottle of 4 ounces of pure drinking water, and you label it on the bottle with a big magic marker saying flu remedy so no one drinks it by mistake. Then you hit the bottle on the palm of your hand 10 times and you take 1 spoonful, that's 1 dose. And you do this every week. Hit it 10 times on the palm of your hand, take a spoon, once a week for 6 weeks. I would start the beginning or mid-December, so now's the perfect time. You don't need to do this if you feel strong, but if you're a person that normally gets the flu shot and you decided not to do it this year and you're worried, then do this instead. It works better than the flu shot, which you guys know by now. The flu shot's been proven to be less than 1% effective, and it has a huge risk of Guillain-Barré, as you know. It's also filled with tons of mercury. So don't be a victim like my mom was. Avoid your flu shot and try the homeopathic prevention protocol. It really does work. The next thing you can do to avoid getting sick when you're around all these sick people is to take colloidal silver all winter if you feel you need to. You can choose to take it all winter, or you can just take it when you feel you're being exposed to sick people. I'll put a link in the show notes to all this stuff, but my very favorite silver is called Nutrisilver. It's super powerful and it works even on the MRSA virus when they've done outside studies of this silver. I personally put 2 drops in my nose dropper bottle and I take it through my nose, but I also put a few drops, I think it's 20 or 30, in a glass of water and drink it that way. And I would recommend that you do the same if you're worried about getting sick. There are a few great herbs for helping your immune system. The first one is Panax ginseng. This is the Korean form of ginseng and the one most say has the biggest impact on the body. Ginseng in Korea is known as a cure for so many things. It's like a panacea. It's touted for giving people incredible power, so it's advised to take in the morning because it might give you so much energy you may not sleep. It's a huge energy power herb. Men use it for its sexual potency with great results. I would say it's the herbal Viagra, and even in women it affects the hormone system and balances them. Panax ginseng is used for so many things: depression, diabetes, fatigue, hypertension, insomnia, shock, ill effects of radiation, morphine and cocaine use, environmental toxins, physical and mental stress, and chronic illness. Now can you see why the Koreans call it a panacea? Panax ginseng gives many people back their health, that's for sure. But since we're talking about flus and colds, it's a great herb to fight off viruses and to bring the energy back after all the fatigue that we go through when having a flu. The next herb I want to tell you about is elderberry. Elderberry you probably know because you see it in a lot of cough syrups. Well, elderberries contain a lot of vitamin C, but they also contain amino acids, carotenoids, flavonoids, rutin, vitamins A and B, and like I said, a lot of C. The health benefits of elderberries are because this herb is known to boost your immune system. Thus, it helps then to defend your body against disease. It's used for many things, but most commonly it's used in the treatment of colds, flus, yeast infections, nasal and chest congestions, and hay fevers. Elderberries contain much more antioxidant capacity than either vitamin E or vitamin C. And the last herb that I want you to know about is called astragalus. This is an adaptogen herb which lowers cortisol, or our stress hormone. Well, it turns out that there's a lot of studies showing many uses for astragalus, like cardiovascular health or fighting off tumors, even alleviating the symptoms of chemotherapy. But what's important for you to know today is that this is an herb that's really used to boost your immune system. As you can see, herbs like ginseng, astragalus, and elderberry could be their own episode on this podcast, right? But since we're talking about flus and colds, I just want you to know about their huge benefits of aiding the immune system when we're sick. You can buy an organic root and you can make a nice tea out of it. I put a link in the show notes for an organic root of astragalus that I like. When making a tea, you boil 3 to 6 grams of that dried root per 12 ounces of water, and you drink that down at least 3 times a day. And if you don't want to hassle with the tea, then just buy a good tincture of astragalus, because that can work just as well. The next important thing to do when you're sick is to eat well. That is, if you have an appetite. As I said, I think a liquid diet full of nutrition is best. But if you do have that appetite, then just be sure to eat organic and eat lots of veggies and healthy vegan meals. And remember, juicing is like a vitamin IV, and it brings you back to life often, so don't forget to do that. Or have someone pick you up a nice green juice so you can rest in bed. So the last thing I want to remind you to do when you're sick is to sleep. I just can't emphasize this enough, you guys. Sleep is when the body does its healing. It's really important to rest and to sleep. Take a few days, don't do anything, lay in bed a lot, be bored, read, but just go to sleep. Your body needs to rest. You've been sick because you've been doing too much, so allow the body to rest and heal. And lastly, don't stress. Put your worries aside and focus on getting well. Ask for help, whether it's from your partner, your friends, or your kids. Stop being Superman or Supermom and let people help you so you can heal, because Mother Nature will always win. And when you try to do too much, you'll just get sicker, stay sick longer, or that sickness will go deeper and deeper, and you'll end up in the hospital with a pneumonia like I did. So trust me, do everything you can and get yourself well. And please ask for help. We all need to reach out and ask our friends to help us when we're in need. Well, you guys, I think the timing of this show is perfect because it's the start of flu season, and I hope this one will help all of you prevent the flu or a cold or any upper respiratory infection this winter. But if you do get sick, try to heal yourself naturally and learn how much safer and better it is to do it this way than to swallow Advil and NyQuil and all that junk medicine that's only suppressing your symptoms and in the end stressing your body more and not getting you well. Speaking of well, you guys, you know what time it is, right? It's time to say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the show today, my podcast family. Vidal has spoken. Remember, you heal with a plant-powered diet, homeopathy, and detoxing, of course. Peace, be healthy, be free, live life.